Welcome to this very special show. We're calling it the New Era in Aviation. I'm Supriya Shrinate. The government today released a draft aviation policy that is aimed at boosting local connectivity and lowering the cost of air travel going forward. Amongst many things, the 2% additional levy on all domestic and overseas tickets is being proposed to boost the regional connectivity. The government hopes to garner about 1,500 crore rupees every year from this cess, which of course will be used to operate flights in remote areas. And to discuss that very big move in aviation, we're joined by very special guests here. Choubey, the Secretary in the Department of Civil Aviation. It's a pleasure to join him on this show. Spicejet Chairman Ajay Singh, Phee Teik Yeoh of Vistara, Mittu Chandilya, the CEO of AirAsia India. Thanks each one of you for being with us, and of course Kapil Kaul with his expert perspective joins us as always. Mr. Choubey, let's begin with you. Regional connectivity seems to be the big focus of the policy that you've put out for consultation today. The hit on the exchequer, because you're talking a lot about the service taxes, you're talking about VAT being done away with on ATF. Will states be willing to play ball? That's the obvious question.
Thank you, Supriya. Let me first of all tell you that as far as regional connectivity is concerned, we are not asking anything from the exchequer, because we are going to levy a separate amount of 2%. And it is this which is going to fund the initiative of regional connectivity. It is not going to be any burden on the exchequer at all. As far as state governments are concerned, we have made this offer within the policy, as you would have noticed, that the state governments will have to come up with their own support in the form of significantly reducing the VAT on aviation turbine fuel, which is supplied from the regional connectivity scheme airports. They will have to provide security free of cost. They will have to provide connectivity to the road connectivity to the airport. They will also have to provide substantially concessional tariff for water and power which will be supplied. You see, the idea is that if the states want that the regional connectivity should happen in their states, then they will have to also own this scheme. We want them to be co-opted into this scheme. And I have no doubt that after all today, no flying is happening from these regional connectivity airports, nothing. So there is no VAT coming from these airports. There are no amounts, no growth in economic growth is happening around these airports. It is for the good of the state that they will come on board, and I have no doubt about it.
All right, that's a point well taken. But if I may take it to Mr. Ajay Singh there. Mr. Singh, there's a lot of thrust on regional connectivity, like we've been discussing with Mr. Choubey from the Civil Aviation Ministry. But the 2 crore paid up capital requirement and no minimum requirement as far as the numbers of aircraft is concerned, is this a sustainable model really?
See, firstly, broadly, I think India has this really unique opportunity today to be a true aviation superpower. There's a global slowdown that's happening. And at the same time, the Indian economy is growing. Indian aviation is growing by 20% every year. We have just 2% of our people flying, and clearly there is massive growth which is possible in India. Now, one of the big areas for us has always been that we have these 475 odd airports, and of these 475 airports, we have just 75 functioning airports. Which also means that large parts of our country remain unconnected today by air travel. And obviously, as you start to connect these places with air travel, it creates a massive impetus for their economies, the local economies, and local tourism and so on. So the thrust that this policy has on regional connectivity is a very welcome one. And as you know, this is a draft policy. It throws up many suggestions and ideas, and it is for all of us, the public at large, the airlines, the media, and all of us to comment on what we think can be done to make this policy even better. So to your specific question on the scheduled commuter airlines, we haven't seen the fine print yet. I think whatever aids connectivity is something that should be welcomed. I have some doubts on whether small carriers with just 2 or 3 or 4 planes can really take advantages of economies of scale, bring down cost to a level where where you can stimulate the market with fares. So I don't know how it will function, but I think anything which adds to connectivity should really be welcomed.
Mr. Phee Teik Yeoh, let me take this across to you because you're someone who's looking at new frontiers here in India. The push on regional connectivity obviously gives you a lot of avenue to growth. Is there enough incentive in place, though, for the regional push, according to you?
Frankly, I have not got the opportunity to go into the details of the draft aviation policy just published this morning, but from what little I could make out of it, I think it's a step in the right direction. Right from the start, Vistara has supported the government's initiative or vision to connect to the remote regions. And we have previously given feedback that for the access to the remote regions to work, there should be some viability gap funding to ensure that these routes are made less unviable than it is today. So if I'm not mistaken, I think there are some measures towards alleviating the cost burden on the airlines to provide the necessary connectivity, necessary because it is essential to be in place before the aviation sector in India can achieve its true potential.
Kapil Kaul, let me come to you. Kapil, many factors outlined in this policy to push the regional connectivity, enough to get the masses who haven't traveled or taken a flight in their life to go ahead there and board flights, according to you?
Well, I think first of all, the overall thrust of the policy is very positive. After a long time, we're seeing a document which is well thought. Obviously, I think I'm expecting that the final policy will have much more depth and substance, and perhaps supports some of the initiative that the government is taking. But broadly, I think on whatever I have seen, I think it has a heart in the right place. It needs all of us, as Mr. Ajay Singh was saying, that to put our heads together and ensure that it becomes implementable and it has substance. It brings the benefits that the policy needs to bring. Some of the positives that we see is first on the focus on regional connectivity. There are some issues that need to be dealt with and perhaps decisively, so that if you want to make it outcome based, but at least the thrust seems to be there, which is positive. There's a lot of physical incentives, and that seems to be well thought through. Maintenance, repair and overhaul, I think that's an industry which is very vital for aviation, vital for Make in India, so that's positive. I think that looks to be getting a structural lift. I would think some of the incentives, like for MROs, ground handling, to get infrastructure status is very good, but there are concerns as well, because I don't think everything has been addressed
specific points
completely.
in just a moment from now. So just hold your thoughts on the MRO bit, because I still want to just finish off the regional connectivity issue. And Mittu Chandilya, if I may throw this question to you. The fact that they've reduced the criteria for a scheduled commuter airline, is what they're calling it for the regional routes, a 2 crore paid up capital, no minimum aircraft requirement. People may debate the sustainability of this model, but as someone who operates a very aggressive low-cost airline, do you believe this could cannibalize into the operations of carriers like yourselves? Mittu?
Well, in any business, I don't see that. I think it's an interesting take, and I don't see that really cannibalizing the business from the scheduled operators. But look, I think it's a positive move, and I think it's an interesting twist that I didn't expect. It was a good move.
All right, let's take it back to the policymaker, Mr. Choubey. The 2% additional levy seriously dampened my sentiments. I do not know how it's going to work out, because every time fares hike, that number is also going to go up. But was it really necessary?
Well, let me, Supriya, tell you that if we can't do it now, when the crude prices are probably at their lowest, when the airlines are making profit, as you know, most of our airlines have turned up profit in this quarter and the last, and when the competition is at its hottest, I think this is absolutely the opportune time for us to start levying this 2%. And after all, 2% on a 5,000 rupee ticket comes to about 100 rupees. So I don't think it is really all that much, and that should be possible for the commuters to pay this amount, which will only go towards providing viability gap funding to those commuters who are flying on the regional routes. I don't think it is a big amount at all, and the time is absolutely right.
All right, the time is absolutely right. Not a big amount. Wonder if I'm going to be happy by wishing that out. But yes, anything for regional connectivity there. Let's start with the people who really got their skin in the game, and every time fares go up or down, the traffic kind of dwindles or surges. Mr. Singh, 2% additional levy on air tickets to fund Regional Development Fund is a move that we appreciate. But the fact that Indian customer is very, very cost conscious, will that dampen sentiment for the rest of the commuters? Are you going to actually penalize the rest to promote regional operations?
I don't think so. The average airfare is around 3,500 rupees. A 2% cess would be about 70 rupees. I think people will happily pay that 70 rupees if that means that there is going to be improved connectivity to so many towns and cities which have so far not been connected. And if that fund will not only provide that viability gap funding which makes it possible to fly to some of those stations and also helps develop airports at many of these stations and make them operational. I think a similar model has been used before to fund the development of the National Highway Development Project, and a small cess was put on petrol at that time. I think Indians are happy to sacrifice and pay a little bit of money if it leads to better connectivity and better growth for their country.
All right, Indians are willing to shell out more money if it leads to better connectivity and anything for that. But the newest carrier in the Indian skies, Vistara, Mr. Phee Teik Yeoh, let me come back to you. Will this not dampen the sentiment that your airline seems to be creating in the market? Is this not going to put commuters away when the fares do rise? A 2% additional levy may work out to be a lot higher when crude prices do go up and when fares do begin to rise around festival times or any other time like that.
Well, let's face it, the funding has to come from somewhere. I have not the opportunity to go through the details, but at the end of the day, it's not just the cess that has to be put in place, but I think the overall cost of doing business in India must come down. So the various stakeholders, the various entities involved in supporting in making this happen must also contribute towards lowering the cost of doing business, the cost of providing the necessary access to the remote regions.
Mittu, do you share the view that's being shared by your other competitors in this space that this is a necessary evil, 2% is not going to be as high and we will have to shell out for greater regional connectivity and better services?
This honestly is a little bit of a surprise. It would be a dampener because any kind of gains that you're seeing with fuel going down, and there are a lot of varying opinions on whether fuel's going to spike back up and when it's going to do that. So a 2% levy honestly would be a significant hit. But like I said, I think regional connectivity, if you're really committed to it, it shouldn't be much of an issue.
Mr. Choubey, while the industry has welcomed your draft policy with open arms, I think the bit that's disappointed a lot of players, especially on my panel here, is the fact that you've been very non-committal on the very controversial 5/20 rule. You've neither done away with it, nor have you said this is going to continue, or with flying credits replace that. Why did you choose to be non-committal? Why could you not take a stance and put that in the draft policy?
This was one of the issues which we addressed during the press conference also, Supriya. You would appreciate that what we have put in public domain is a draft civil aviation policy. And the whole idea behind putting a draft policy for consultation with the stakeholders is that we do not have closed mind even on issues where we have indicated certain position. We don't have a closed mind at all. Otherwise, there would be no point in going ahead and consulting the stakeholders. As far as 5/20 is concerned, as I mentioned, there are three options. And we want to elicit and get the views from all the stakeholders before we take a final call. It is a matter of another 2 months. But let me also assure you that when the time comes and when we are going ahead with the final policy, let me assure you that there shall be absolutely no ambiguity as far as the position is concerned on this rule, none whatsoever.
All right, no ambiguity will stay there. But Kapil Kaul, if I may bring this to you, you've been hearing from every operator. This is one issue that has really divided the industry. According to you, should the government have taken the bull by its horns, formalized its position on this one and then put it in the draft policy, or has it done the right thing, but has rather kept it ambivalent, if you may?
Well, frankly, I'm actually surprised that it takes so many years to correct something which is against India's interests. First of all, from 2005, we are saying that 520 is extremely negative. 520 shouldn't have been there at all. Our Union Minister for Civil Aviation at every public forum says that 520 should go. He personally favors abolition of 520. 520 is a negative rule. No matter what FIA says, no matter what the current carriers say, it's a rule that will hurt India's international growth. And I don't think the government can actually liberalize the bilateral regime if you continue to have 520. And I don't think you can just basically think of open skies for foreign carriers and have restrictions on your own Indian carriers. I find that bizarre, to be honest with you. I found it in 2005. I find it now. I don't know what is the logic of continuing it. And I'm hoping, as Mr. Choubey is saying, that the final outcome would be something where the national interest of place above the interest of few carriers who want to keep it for whatever reason.
Mr. Singh, if I may come to you, because this really affects people like yourselves who've got their skin in the game. How disappointed are you that the government hasn't taken a call on this one and has left it rather open-ended? And, if this rule were to go or be replaced by flying credits, how would life change for you?
I think what the policy states is a very fair and honest position. I think the policy recognizes that there are divergent views on this subject. And that existing airlines typically are against the abolition of this rule, and obviously the new airlines want it abolished. And there is a position in between. So I think the policy very fairly presents the 3 points of view and awaits comments from everybody before coming to a final conclusion. I think eventually the rule or the change in the rule will have to stand the test of whether it improves prospects for Indian aviation, whether it improves connectivity, whether it helps make India an aviation superpower, and whether it creates a level playing field for all players, past and present. So I think the last word on this is still to be spoken, and I think all of us will make our comments, and then the government in its wisdom will come to a conclusion.
I'm reasonably certain that your comment is going to be very different from Phee Teik Yeoh's comments. And so, Ms. Phee Teik Yeoh, if I may come to you, it's an issue that has divided the industry. It obviously impacts you directly because you would want international operations to come in, and you would want that regressive rule that some of you may call to go away with. What impact will this really have, and are you disappointed that a definite call has not been taken by the government in this one?
Well, frankly, we wish there was clarity on the direction the 520 will go. But having said that, the fact that there were 3 options being put on the table gives us hope. And why we are hopeful and we remain hopeful till today is because ultimately we are confident that logic will prevail. Logic will prevail that the abolition of 520, the unconditional removal of 520 will take place for the benefit of the nation, for the benefit of all travellers in India.
Mittu, many people believe it was your entry into the Indian aviation that really got the debate started off on 520 with Indigo and Go Air and everybody else on one side and Jet, and of course the new guys like yourselves and Vistara on the other. But what kind of an impact will it have if this rule were to go away, or whether it were to stay, or if flying credits were to replace this one?
Well, see, first of all, I am disappointed. I think that there's been so much debate, so much discussion about it. But you are right in the sense that it's probably the one aspect of the civil aviation policies that has the entire industry entirely divided. So probably the most difficult for the ministry to take a stance on or to commit to. But I would have hoped and expected that they would have taken a definitive stand on it. It's the only thing that has, multiple options to it on how it could kind of come out in the next 3 weeks. So it is disappointing, particularly because if you look at the impact it could have, not only in terms of, utilizing a lot of the capacity with passengers that could have an opportunity to fly, but also to give opportunity to new foreign airlines to come in, or existing operators to really scale up operations and manage a portfolio and give ultimately our passengers and travelers options to fly abroad. I mean, it should be the number one thing in the policy that should have been effected. So definitely disappointing.
All right, disappointing as far as no definite call on this one is concerned. But the other big thing that this policy talks about, and Mr. Choubey, I'm going to bring this the ball back to your court, MRO. While yes, there was no hit of exchequer as far as regional connectivity was concerned, this is definitely going to hit the exchequer because you're talking about a lot of exemptions here. How much worth of business do you believe can be generated within India and also attracted by India as a global hub for MRO?
I would put it this way, Supriya, that when our MRO business is going outside the country at the moment, almost 85% of our $1 billion is going outside. Where is the question of loss of revenue? It is only notional. And the whole idea is, if we want that the MRO industry in India should become competitive with the competitors such as those in Gulf or Colombo or Singapore, then we will have to create appropriate ecosystem. And that's what we have attempted. That on the taxation issues which were making MRO uncompetitive, we would take care of those taxation issues, and we will ensure that the MRO industry within the country becomes hugely popular, not only with the airlines within the country, but with the airlines outside as well. And the loss of revenue which you mentioned is only notional because no revenues are coming at the moment.
All right, that's a notional loss of revenue, but very quickly, Mr. Phee Teik Yeoh, MRO is a big focus area. It's a big part of your operations here. A lot of business gets shipped out to Gulf, Sri Lanka, and even Singapore for that matter. The new norms that have been announced today, will that make you do your MRO, that's the maintenance and operation part of it here in India now? You think that that's going to change things?
The slew of measures, briefly, from what I understand, will go a long way towards reducing the fiscal burden currently being placed on the domestic MRO providers. I think they're talking about the service tax removal, excise and whatnot. It will certainly lower the cost of providing MRO services in India. Right now, it is at least 50% more expensive. So when the playing field is leveled, the MRO activities will start flowing back to India where it should be. And when this happens, I think it is great news for the entire aviation and also for the entire nation, because there will be huge potential for skills development, employment creation, and certainly for revenue to be retained in the country.
Mittu, what about you? Are the new norms of this going to change things as far as your cost of operations is concerned if you were to do the MRO here in India?
Look, frankly, out of the entire policy, this was the one point I was most excited about. You know, right from the last 2 years, I've been advocating that we should become a significant hub for MRO. Just our geographic presence as well as the kind of growth rates that we're envisioning, the number of aircrafts that are going to come into India. You just take one carrier that's, bringing another 430 planes in. Just the ability for us to do something from an MRO standpoint has to be there. And, the structure from a taxation standpoint and incentives from the government to do that just was missing. So, frankly, for me, this has been, out of the entire policy, this was probably the biggest impact I saw, is that we're finally tying into Make in India. We're positioning ourselves, using the kind of labor skill sets that we have, the mechanical output that we could actually bring all of that together to have quite a significant impact. I think this could be phenomenal for India as a country. And coming to AirAsia, I think it allows us to now game plan going into the future, depending on our fleet size, the cost structures, all of that, as to whether we would want to be in that space. But look, I think for India as a country, that's a significant win, and I'm finally happy to see that our government sees this as a significant opportunity where we can play not only in the regional aviation market, but also on a global scale.
Kapil, I'll let you have the last word on the show then on the subject, and very quickly I want to ask you, a lot of the onus for this new era in aviation really lies on the Indian states. They haven't always played ball. You think things are going to be different this time around?
Well, I think this is one of the positive steps of this civil aviation policy is that it's getting states on board. I think never has been made an attempt to basically get the states involved in taking responsibility for building aviation infrastructure and building structures that will make it viable. This is the first time, whether it's regional connectivity, other elements, even MRO. I think the government needs to be appreciated for making sure that you are getting the states on board, which is the first step for making sure that we talk about the structural improvement that we are talking about.
Fair point indeed. States on board and civil aviation new policy in place for the new era. But a very quick consideration of how much faith there is coming back to aviation. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, the big bull, has bought 11.9 lakh shares of Jet Airways today. So he's really invested in 3 airlines now. He picked up stake in Indigo, something that you heard yesterday. And of course now Jet Airways and Spicejet. So faith returning to Indian aviation. We really want to thank each one of you for being with us on this very special edition of A New Era in Indian Aviation. Mr. Choubey and the rest of Indian industry represented right here on the show. Thanks very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you
And to
very
the
much.
viewers, stay tuned for news and events that follow.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.